She collapsed after working all night, then heard the CEO whisper, "I need you." She collapsed alone. No one saw it, no one heard, until he did. Matthew Carter, the cold, unreachable CEO, was the first to run. He dropped to his knees beside her on the office floor, panic in his eyes, his voice trembling as he whispered, "Lisa, please stay. I need you." In that moment, the entire office faded. Just two people, one truth, and a secret that would change everything. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. It happened at 2:47 a.m. The office was silent, the kind of silence that wraps around your bones and makes every breath sound too loud. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting pale shadows across empty cubicles. Lisa's fingers trembled as they hovered above her keyboard. She blinked once, twice, and then everything went black. Her body hit the floor without a sound. No one saw it. No one heard, except him. Matthew was in his office, the only other soul in the building. He wasn't supposed to be there either, but then again, he rarely left anymore. Not since her. He had been reviewing contracts, lost in figures and deadlines. When something, a sound, a feeling, made him look up. The glow from Lisa's monitor was still on, but she wasn't there. He stood slowly, uncertain. Then the quiet cracked, a soft thud like a box falling, or a body. His steps were quick now, almost running, and when he turned the corner, his breath caught. There she was, Lisa, collapsed on the floor between rows of empty desks. Her face was pale, lips slightly parted, her chest barely moving. One of her heels had slipped off, and papers were scattered beside her, like fallen leaves. "Lisa!" he whispered, more to himself than anyone. He dropped to his knees beside her, eyes wide. Hey, Lisa, look at me." She didn't respond. He pressed two fingers to her wrist. Faint pulse, too faint. His jaw clenched. "Why were you still here?" He shook her gently, his voice cracking, something raw bleeding through his usual calm. "Lisa, please, just open your eyes." Her lashes fluttered. It was barely a movement, but it was enough. "Lisa?" he said again, softer this time, almost afraid to break her. And then she whispered it, barely audible, her voice a fragile thread of breath. "Matthew." That did something to him, his name, from her lips. Not Mr. Carter or Sir, just Matthew. No one ever said it like that. "I'm here," he said quickly, kneeling closer. "You're okay, I've got you." But before she could respond again, her eyes rolled back and her body went still. Matthew froze. For a second, panic threatened to take over. Then instinct kicked in. He pulled out his phone. Dialing the emergency line, his voice urgent but firm. By the time the paramedics arrived, he hadn't left her side. 3 hours earlier. Lisa was at her desk, eyes heavy, back aching, but she couldn't leave yet. The client file still wasn't finished, and Matthew Carter didn't tolerate delays. Not that he'd ever spoken to her directly about it. He barely looked at her, and when he did, it was always brief, curt, business, which was fine. Lisa didn't want attention. She just wanted to do her job, keep her head down, and maybe, just maybe, get a promotion one day. Even if she had to break herself trying. She checked the time, 11:28 p.m. 28. Her blouse clung to her back from the heat of the monitor. Her eyes burned. She sipped the cold coffee beside her, grimacing. Her satchel lay slumped beside the chair, one strap torn, a symbol of how tired she felt, held together by threads. She didn't see the man watching her from the shadows of his office. Matthew hadn't planned to stay late again, but he had trouble sleeping lately, and for some reason, whenever he looked out and saw that one cubicle lit up long after everyone else had left, he didn't feel so alone. Lisa, she was always there, quiet, efficient, unseen. But he saw her. He noticed how she tied her hair tighter when she got frustrated, how she bit the inside of her cheek when she was thinking hard, how she always brought an extra sandwich but never ate both. He noticed too much, and that scared him, because Matthew Carter didn't feel things anymore, not since the divorce, not since losing his sister, not since learning that power came with a price: isolation. But somehow, Lisa had broken through the glass without even trying. She didn't know that he'd paused outside the break room once just to hear her laugh, or that he knew which song she hummed when she thought no one was listening. She didn't know how close he had come to speaking to her more than once. But every time something held him back. Fear, pride, guilt, he couldn't tell. That night, as he watched her through the glass, hunched over the keyboard, too tired to sit straight, something inside him twisted. He almost walked out to talk to her. Almost. Back in the present, at the hospital, Lisa slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was a ceiling too white, too bright. Then, the beeping of a monitor, a curtain pulled halfway, and someone sitting beside her, head in hands. Matthew. His sleeves were still rolled up, tie gone, jacket draped over the back of the chair. He looked human. Not like the CEO everyone feared. Not like the man in the suit who never smiled. She stirred. He looked up. Their eyes met. For the first time, really met. He stood quickly. "You're awake. Thank God." Lisa blinked. Her throat felt dry. "What happened?" "You collapsed at the office." He rubbed his forehead. "They said it was exhaustion, dehydration. You hadn't eaten in too long, apparently." Lisa closed her eyes. Embarrassment flooded her. "I'm sorry." His brows pulled together. "Why are you apologizing?" "I should have left earlier. I should have—" "Lisa." His voice was soft but firm. "You almost died. And all you can think about is whether your report was late?" Her lip trembled. She didn't mean to cry, but something about the way he said her name made her feel seen. He moved closer, hesitated, then slowly sat beside her again. "I didn't know you stayed that late." "Every night," he said quietly. "I should have noticed sooner." Lisa turned her face toward the window. "You're the CEO. I'm just no one." "No," he said, his voice low. There was a long pause, and then the words that would change everything. "Lisa, please stay. I need you." She turned back slowly, eyes wide. He didn't blink. "I mean it." And before she could say anything, the nurse pulled back the curtain. "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you had company." Lisa flinched. Matthew stood abruptly. The moment shattered. The nurse smiled, oblivious. "You have some paperwork to sign, sir." Matthew glanced at Lisa. "I'll be right back." As he walked out, Lisa lay there, heart racing. What did he mean? Why would someone like him need someone like her? When Lisa walked back into the office 2 days later, everything was different, not visibly. The desks were still in their perfect rows. The same scent of stale coffee and printer toner hung in the air. But something had shifted, and she could feel it the moment the elevator doors opened. People were looking at her, not in a mean way, not quite, but with curiosity, the kind that lingers a second too long, the kind that passes in whispers right after she turns the corner. She clutched her satchel tighter. The strap was fixed now. Her neighbor had helped, but her palms still sweated as she made her way to her desk. "Lisa!" She turned. It was Priya from HR, friendly, energetic, always with some new podcast recommendation. Today she looked almost giddy. "You're back. We were so worried. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lisa replied, offering a small smile. "Just needed rest." Priya leaned in a little. "I heard Mr. Carter personally took you to the hospital, like in his car." Lisa froze. "He was in the ambulance," she corrected carefully. "He stayed until they admitted me." Priya gave a knowing look. "That's not exactly normal behavior for our CEO, is it?" Lisa blinked. "I don't think it means anything." but even as she said it, her heart fluttered with confusion, because it did mean something, something she couldn't name yet. Across the office, behind frosted glass, Matthew Carter stood at his window, watching her. She looked better. Color in her cheeks, hair down today, unusual for her. The light hit her just right when she moved. But her steps, still cautious. He clenched his jaw. He hated that she felt watched, that his moment of honesty might have exposed her to this unwanted attention. But he couldn't undo it. He had said it. "I need you." The words had slipped past his armor before he could stop them. Now he couldn't take them back. Lisa sat at her desk, pretending to read an email, but her thoughts were spinning. She kept hearing his voice, raw, vulnerable, like something cracked open in him that night. "Lisa, please stay. I need you." What had he meant, and why? Why did part of her want it to mean something more? She shook her head. "Don't be stupid. He was your boss. He was probably just scared in the moment. People say things when they're panicked. But then, why had he stayed all night at the hospital? Why had he insisted on driving her home the next morning, even when she told him she could call someone? Why had he looked at her like she was the only person in the room? Lisa. Her stomach dropped. He was standing by her desk now, Matthew, in the flesh. No warning, no assistant to announce him. Just there. She turned slowly. "Mr. Carter." "Can we talk?" "In my office." Heads turned, phones lowered. The entire department held its breath. She stood quickly, trying not to trip over her own heels. "Of course." As they walked down the corridor, the silence followed them like a shadow. Lisa felt the heat rising in her cheeks, but Matthew didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care. Once inside his office, he closed the door behind her. There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," he said. She looked up. "For what?" "For putting you in the spotlight like this. That wasn't fair." Lisa swallowed. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I didn't step in soon enough," he said, his voice lower now. "I should have seen how much you were taking on. You were working yourself into the ground, and I ignored it." Her eyes flicked up to his. "I didn't want to be noticed," she said. "That's how I survive here." Matthew's brow furrowed. "That's not how it's supposed to be." Lisa gave a short laugh. "Well, it's how it is." Another pause. Then he walked toward his desk and picked up a file. "I want to reassign some of your work temporarily," he said, avoiding her gaze. "Only the high-pressure accounts. You need time." Lisa stiffened. "Are you benching me?" He looked up, surprised. "No, I'm protecting you." "I don't need protecting." Her voice cracked, and she hated that it did. "I know you don't." He stepped closer. "But I want to. Doesn't that count for something?" Her breath caught. She couldn't look at him. Not like that. She reached for the file in his hands, needing something to do. "What's this?" "It's a project I think you'd be perfect for," he said. "But it's off the books. Quiet, low pressure, just meaningful." Lisa frowned. "Why me?" He hesitated. Then, without breaking eye contact, he said, "Because I trust you. And I see you, Lisa, even when you think no one does." She didn't move, couldn't speak. Her whole body felt like it was holding its breath. Then his phone buzzed on the desk, breaking the spell. He stepped back. "You can think about it." Lisa nodded slowly, clutching the file. As she opened the door to leave, he called out softly behind her, "And Lisa, I meant what I said. That night." She stopped in the doorway. His voice lowered, but the words hit like thunder. "I need you." Lisa walked back to her desk in a daze. Everything she thought she knew about her job, her boss, even herself, was shifting. This wasn't just a new project. This was something else, but she didn't know yet if it would break her or save her. Lisa hadn't even taken off her coat when she opened the folder Matthew had given her the day before. She sat at the small kitchen table of her apartment, a cozy space with pale yellow walls and a flickering bulb she hadn't gotten around to fixing. Her cat, Mocha, curled on the window ledge, oblivious to how her world was starting to tilt. Inside the folder was a file labeled The Whitmore Campaign. She frowned. That wasn't a current project. It had been canceled months ago, a brand rebranding deal that fell apart when the client pulled out last minute. No one in the company had talked about it since, except this wasn't just marketing notes. There were handwritten annotations, notes in the margins, sketches, and not hers. The drawings were done with soft pencil and passion. They weren't in her style, they were personal. And at the bottom of the folder was something that didn't belong at all. A letter, folded, unsealed. She hesitated, fingers lingering on the crease, then slowly unfolded it with care. If you're reading this, it means I finally found someone I trust enough to show the truth to. This campaign wasn't about rebranding a product. It was about saving someone, maybe myself. MC. Her breath caught. MC Matthew Carter? She reread it 3 times. The handwriting matched the notes. A quiet, slanted script. Raw. Not the writing of a CEO, but of a brother maybe, or someone grieving. Lisa leaned back slowly. The air in the room suddenly felt heavier. This wasn't just work. This was personal. The next morning, she didn't sleep in like the doctor recommended. She didn't go in late or ask for more time to rest. She couldn't. Her thoughts had kept her awake all night, circling back to that letter, those sketches, and the way Matthew had looked at her in the hospital, not like a boss, but like someone finally letting down a wall they'd been hiding behind for years. She showed up at 8 a.m. sharp, folder in hand, hair pulled back, eyes clearer than they'd been in weeks. She went straight to Matthew's office. His assistant blinked, startled. Mr. Carter isn't expecting—" "He'll see me," Lisa said gently but firmly. The door was slightly ajar. She knocked once, then pushed it open. He was at his desk, sleeves rolled, shirt untucked at the waist. A file lay open before him, but his eyes weren't reading it. They were far away. He looked up, surprised, and something in his expression shifted the moment he saw her. Tension softened. The edges of his guarded face loosened. Just a little. "You read it?" She nodded and stepped in, closing the door behind her. Her heart beat hard in her chest. "What is this really, Matthew?" she asked quietly. Because that campaign wasn't just a pitch, was it? He stood slowly, walked over to the side table, and poured himself coffee. A silent way of buying time. She noticed how deliberate his movements were, as if grounding himself before he spoke. "It started as a campaign," he finally said. "My sister, Elise. She was the creative behind it. She worked on it night and day. It was supposed to be her big break." Lisa sat down across from him, heart quietly sinking. She hadn't known Matthew had a sister. She was brilliant, he continued, voice more distant now. Funny, sharp, a little reckless. She believed brands could tell stories that actually healed people. He took a sip of coffee. It did nothing to hide the tremble in his hand. But right before the presentation, she was diagnosed with lymphoma, stage 3. She tried to finish the campaign from the hospital, but she couldn't. She passed away 6 weeks later. Lisa's eyes welled. She didn't speak. Didn't want to interrupt what clearly cost him to say aloud. Matthew sat across from her, staring at nothing. "I shut the project down. Deleted every email, told the board it wasn't viable, but I couldn't bring myself to throw away her drafts, or her sketches, or the letter." Silence stretched between them, fragile and honest. Lisa finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Why give it to me?" He looked at her then, fully, deeply. "Because I've seen how you work, quietly, carefully, with heart. You don't treat this place like just a job, Lisa. You care, like she did." He stood and began to pace, his movements restless. "And I've been stuck for years. I couldn't look at any of it, not without feeling like I failed her. But then that night, when you collapsed, and I thought I might lose someone else I hadn't protected." His voice broke, just for a second. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. The weight on his shoulders looked unbearable. That's when I realized if I trusted anyone to finish what Elise started, it's you. Lisa didn't know what to say. Her throat tightened. It was too much, too close. She stared at the folder in her lap. "You don't even really know me." "I know enough," he said, facing her again, "and that's more than I've allowed myself to know anyone in a long time." Lisa looked up, her chest rising slowly with a deep breath. There was something in his eyes, not just grief, not just regret. It was something like hope. Lisa spent the next few days immersed in the project. She kept the file close, carried it home with her at night, spread the drafts across her living room floor, lit candles to think more clearly. Even brought out her old sketch pad she hadn't touched since college. There was something sacred about it. It wasn't just a campaign anymore. It was a thread back to someone Matthew had loved. And now, strangely, it was also becoming a thread back to herself, to the version of Lisa that used to believe her work could mean something more than ticking boxes and chasing promotions. Each night she discovered another piece of Elise. A handwritten quote here, a color palette scribbled in the margin, photos of women, real women, of different ages, cultures, shapes, all with a single caption beneath them. Worth, not defined by the world, defined by you. It gave her chills. This was a campaign about self-worth, about visibility, about truth. And Lisa realized that was why it hit her so deeply. Because for most of her life, she had felt invisible, like a shadow moving behind others who shined brighter. But this project, it whispered to the parts of her she had buried a long time ago. She presented her initial ideas to Matthew 3 days later. He didn't interrupt her once, just sat quietly at the long conference table in his office, flipping through the visuals she'd laid out, a finger tapping lightly on the table, his brow furrowed in focus. When she finished, there was silence. Then he exhaled and looked up at her with something soft, almost reverent. "Elise would have loved this," he said quietly. Lisa's throat tightened. "I just tried to follow what she started," she murmured. "No," he said, standing. "You gave it voice. You gave her voice again." She didn't know what to say to that. The air between them felt thick, not uncomfortable, but heavy with something unspoken. He took a step toward her. "Thank you, Lisa." She nodded, eyes lowered. But before he could say more, a knock broke the moment. His assistant peeked in. "Mr. Carter, your brother is here." Matthew's expression shifted in an instant, from open and raw to locked down and unreadable. "Send him in," he said. Lisa quickly gathered her sketches, suddenly aware that whatever had just passed between them, it didn't belong to anyone else. The man who walked in was sharp-jawed and charming, with perfectly styled hair and the kind of tailored confidence that filled a room. He looked like a younger version of Matthew, but without the weight behind the eyes. "Big brother," he said with a grin, "still hiding in your office like a vampire?" Matthew gave him a stiff handshake. "What do you want, Daniel?" "I just came to talk about the board vote next week. No ambush, I promise." Daniel's eyes flicked to Lisa. "Didn't mean to interrupt anything." Lisa offered a polite smile and made her way to the door. As she stepped out, she caught one last glance of Matthew, his posture straighter, jaw clenched, a man back in armor. By the time she reached her desk, whispers had returned. 2 interns passed behind her, not even bothering to lower their voices. "Did you hear? She was in his office again. 3 times this week. And it's not even Friday." "Must be nice being the favorite." Lisa stared at her screen, heart thudding. She tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the campaign, but something gnawed at her. Not shame exactly, not guilt, just pressure. Eyes she didn't ask for. Later that afternoon, she was called into HR. Priya looked uncomfortable the moment Lisa walked in. Hey, just a quick chat. Nothing serious, she said, motioning to the chair. Lisa sat, hands folded tightly in her lap. So, there have been some comments, just murmurs really, but HR has to be proactive, you know? Lisa didn't respond. I guess people are noticing the time you're spending with Mr. Carter, Priya continued, and while no one's accusing you of anything, it's good to have clarity, boundaries, just in case the board ever audits creative assignments. Lisa stared at her. Are you asking if I'm involved with him? No, Priya said quickly. Of course not, but perception matters. And I'm sure you understand. These things can be complicated. Lisa stood. The campaign was his sister's. Priya paused. I didn't know that. I didn't either, until this week. Her voice was calm, but firm. This isn't about favoritism. It's about honoring someone who mattered, someone he lost. Priya looked down, almost embarrassed. I get it. Really, I do. Just be careful, okay? That night, Lisa sat alone in the office after hours again. But this time, it wasn't exhaustion. She chose to be there. She dimmed the lights, pinned Elisa's original notes to the wall beside her sketches, and let the silence become something sacred again. Her phone buzzed. A message from Matthew. I heard about HR, I'm sorry. She hesitated, then typed back. It's not your fault. After a moment, another message came in. Still working? Yes? Come to the rooftop. You need air. Lisa stared at the message. For a second, she almost said no. But then, she stood. The elevator groaned as it climbed toward the top floor. Lisa leaned back against the mirrored wall, heart racing for a reason she didn't want to name. Why was she going? Why had she said yes? It wasn't like her. Not to follow late-night invitations, not to leave her work unfinished, not to feel pulled toward someone. The doors opened with a soft ding. She stepped out. The rooftop was quiet, the sky washed in dark blue and city light. It wasn't a fancy space, just gravel, some rusting vents, and a low railing, but the view made it feel like the top of the world. Buildings stretched out in every direction, far below. Cars moved like silent fireflies. Matthew stood near the edge, hands in his pockets, jacket folded over one arm. He turned when he heard the door open. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I wasn't either, she replied. He smiled softly. There was a beat of silence. Come here, he said. She walked to where he stood, careful with each step. The wind caught her hair and brushed it across her cheek. He reached out almost without thinking and tucked it behind her ear. She froze. His hand lingered just a second too long before he pulled it away. I come up here when it gets too loud, he said, eyes on the skyline. Down there, I'm someone else, but here, I can breathe. Lisa looked out. The air smelled like rain that never came. Why me, Matthew? He glanced sideways at her. What do you mean? You could have picked anyone to work on Elisa's campaign. Why me, really? He looked away, then back. His voice was lower now. Slower. Because you remind me of her. Lisa's breath caught. Not the way you look, not your voice, he added, but your heart. The way you care too much and try to hide it. The way you don't fight for the spotlight, but you still shine through it. She didn't speak. Couldn't. He exhaled. She used to say that being invisible was a kind of superpower. Because it let you see things others missed? Lisa finally looked at him. You miss her. Every day. Silence settled between them again. Not awkward, but aching. Matthew turned to face her. I've tried so hard to be what people expect of me. Strong, in control, untouchable. But lately, he stopped. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. Lately? He looked at her, and this time didn't look away. Lately I keep seeing you, in every room, every moment, and I don't want to pretend anymore. Lisa blinked, not trusting what she heard. But then he stepped closer, close enough that she could hear his breath. See the tiredness under his eyes. Feel the heat between them. I know this isn't what you came here for. I know I'm not supposed to say things like this. His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched at his sides. But when I thought you might not wake up that night, I realized something. He paused. I don't want a world where you're not in it. Lisa's eyes stung. She looked down, then up again. You don't even really know me. He smiled, not with his mouth, but with something behind his eyes. I'm learning. She could feel her heart pounding, not out of fear, but because no one had ever said something like that to her, not like this. Not when they meant it. She looked back at the city, trying to steady her breath. I don't know what this is, she said. Neither do I, he admitted, but I know it's real. Just then her phone buzzed in her pocket. She hesitated, then checked it. It was a message from Daniel Carter. He's just using you to fix his past. Don't let him. Her blood ran cold. She looked up at Matthew. He noticed her face change. What is it? Lisa swallowed hard, slipped the phone back into her pocket. Nothing, she said quickly. Just noise. But her voice betrayed her, and Matthew knew. He stepped back slightly, walls rising again. Lisa, what did he say? She shook her head. It doesn't matter. It does to me. Their eyes locked, and in that moment everything felt fragile, like one wrong word could shatter whatever they'd started building. Lisa turned toward the door. I should go. Lisa. She didn't stop walking, but just before she stepped inside, she turned and said quietly, Don't let this become another thing you shut down, Matthew. Then she disappeared behind the door. Lisa didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed with the city humming outside her window, staring at the ceiling, her phone face down beside her. Mocha curled against her hip. But even the soft purring couldn't quiet her thoughts. What was she doing? What were they doing? Matthew Carter wasn't just her boss. He was the face of the company, the name on the building, the man everyone whispered about when he passed. People feared him, respected him. And now she had seen pieces of him that no one else had. And she liked him. That scared her more than anything. But Daniel's message wouldn't leave her head. He's just using you to fix his past. Don't let him. Was that what this was? Was she just a mirror to someone he lost? The next morning she walked into the office early, no makeup, hair tied back tightly. Eyes tired. She didn't stop by Matthew's office, didn't reply to the message he sent that night. Can we talk? She didn't know how to answer without breaking something. So she said nothing. Instead, she threw herself into the campaign. She cleaned up the storyboard, tightened the message, wrote a new tagline Elise would have been proud of. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. She worked straight through lunch, ate crackers from her drawer, ignored the looks. She became invisible again, just like before, safe, untouched, alone. Matthew noticed. He watched her from behind the tinted glass of his office, hands and fists in his pockets, wondering what the hell he'd done wrong. Was it the rooftop, the message, the truth? He had never felt so unsure, and he hated it. He had spent his entire adult life learning how to stay in control of rooms, of people, of situations, but Lisa was different. He couldn't control how she made him feel, or how she'd pulled away. That afternoon, Daniel knocked on his office door like he owned the place. Busy? He asked, walking in without waiting. Matthew didn't bother answering. Daniel dropped into the chair across from him and gave a smug little smile. You look tired. Let me guess. Things with the girl not going so well? Matthew's jaw tightened. She's not a game, Daniel. No, she's not. That's why I'm trying to protect you from doing something stupid. Or worse, repeating yourself. Matthew narrowed his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? Daniel leaned forward, voice lowered. You build attachments when you're guilty, Matt. First with Elise. Now with this Lisa girl. But feelings don't fix the past. They just distract you from reality. Matthew stood slowly. "Get out." Daniel stood too, a flash of something darker crossing his face. "You really think the board's going to let you throw executive weight behind a passion project because you've got feelings for the junior staff?" "This isn't about feelings," Matthew snapped. "This is about finishing what Elise started," Daniel scoffed. "You sure about that?" There was a pause, thick, heavy. Then Daniel added, "You should see what they're saying downstairs." And he left. Lisa stood in the break room that evening, pouring cold coffee into a paper cup when she heard the voices behind her. She didn't mean to listen, but they weren't exactly being quiet. "I'm just saying, she was nobody before. Now suddenly she's working directly with the CEO. Somebody said they saw them on the rooftop last night. She's smart, yeah, but not that smart." Classic Cinderella climb, laughter. Lisa froze. The cup trembled in her hand. She threw the coffee away and walked out, heart burning in her chest. That night she took the long way home. She walked through the park, past the bookstore she used to go to before life got so heavy, past the ramen shop where she and her dad had lunch on her first day at the firm, past the spots that reminded her of who she was before she became afraid to be seen. She needed to feel herself again. Not the girl in the CEO's office, not the whisper in the hallways, just Lisa. Plain, quiet, working too hard Lisa. But even that identity didn't quite fit anymore, because for the first time, someone had seen past it. And now that she'd felt that kind of attention, that kind of care, going back to invisibility hurt more than it used to. 2 days passed. No rooftop, no messages, no words. Then, on the third morning, Lisa's phone buzzed during a meeting. It was from Priya in HR. "Can you come to my office after lunch? We need to discuss something urgent." Her stomach dropped. Had someone filed a complaint? Did they know about the rooftop? Did she already cross a line without realizing it? When she entered the HR office at 1:10, Matthew was already sitting there. And so was Daniel. Lisa froze. Priya gestured gently. "Please, have a seat." Lisa sat, back stiff, hands in her lap. Matthew looked at her, not cold, not warm, but unreadable. Daniel, on the other hand, looked like a man about to enjoy something he'd waited for. Priya cleared her throat. "We've been asked to formally review the use of executive authority over personal assignments, especially concerning the Whitmore campaign." Lisa blinked. "Wait, what?" Daniel folded his arms. "We're concerned about the objectivity of the selection process. Given your personal involvement with Mr. Carter..." Lisa's face burned. "There is no personal involvement." But Matthew didn't speak. He didn't defend her. He just stared at the table. Lisa stood in the hallway outside HR, staring at the wall like it might tell her what to feel. Inside, everything was chaos. Not the loud kind, not the angry kind, but the quiet kind that creeps up behind your ribs and presses hard until your heart has no room to beat. Matthew hadn't defended her, not a word. He hadn't even looked at her. Daniel had controlled the room, manipulated the tone, and twisted everything into something that felt ugly. And still, Matthew had just sat there, as if silence would protect her, but it didn't. It humiliated her, and worst of all, just confirmed the whispers. She didn't go back to her desk. She walked out of the building, didn't even grab her coat. The city air hit her hard, hot, dry, full of noise and indifference. She walked without direction, dodging traffic, passing faces that didn't know her, couldn't see her. But at least out here, no one was pretending to care, while stabbing her quietly with side eyes and speculation. Somewhere along 6th Avenue, she stopped. Sat down on a public bench, folder still in hand, the Whitmore campaign. Elisa's vision, Matthew's past, Lisa's responsibility. Her fingers clutched it tighter. This campaign had become her escape, her chance to feel seen, to do something that mattered. But now it felt like a trap. Something she cared too much about, something that had made her vulnerable in front of the exact kind of power that could destroy her. Her phone buzzed. It was him. "Lisa." Please, can we talk?" She stared at the screen, then turned the phone over on her lap. Matthew sat alone in his office, his hands pressed against his face. He had no idea how to fix what just happened. He should have spoken up. He should have stopped Daniel. He should have said the truth. That Lisa wasn't just some employee he noticed. That she wasn't someone he was using to fix Elise's legacy. She was the only one who made him feel like a human being again. But sitting in that HR room, surrounded by the weight of policy and board scrutiny, he'd hesitated, afraid his words would make things worse for her, and in trying to protect her, he'd failed her again. His phone lit up. No response. He deserved that. Lisa didn't go home that night. She went to the old cafe 2 blocks from her apartment. The one with the soft music, the wooden chairs, the smell of cinnamon that reminded her of being little. She hadn't been there in years. She ordered tea and sat by the window, and she started writing. Not a resignation letter, not a report, but a memo, a formal pitch. She took the entire Whitmore campaign and restructured it, from strategy to branding to messaging, making it not about Matthew Carter's grief or Lisa's feelings, but about Elise's vision, about every woman who felt invisible, about every story that deserved light. She wrote with focus, with fire. This wasn't for him anymore. This was hers now. The next morning, Lisa showed up early, hair tied, face calm. She walked into Matthew's office without knocking. He looked up, startled, hopeful, then immediately tense. "I'm not here to talk about us," she said, placing the new folder on his desk. "I'm here to talk about her." He blinked. "Her? Elise?" He slowly opened the folder. His breath caught. This is a campaign that deserves to be seen," Lisa said. "You wanted me to finish what she started." "I did. But not under a shadow. Not with everyone assuming I got here by being someone's secret." Matthew stood. "Lisa." "You didn't defend me," she said. Her voice was even, but her eyes burned. "You sat there and let them talk like I was something you'd found on the side of the road. I was trying to protect you. You don't protect someone by making them feel small." He stepped toward her. "I know I hurt you." I panicked. "I thought saying less would make it easier." "For who?" she asked. The silence between them answered. Lisa drew a breath. "I'm taking a week off," she said. "You can show this to the board, pitch it, or don't. That's on you. But I won't let this story get buried, because 2 men couldn't separate power from connection." She turned, paused at the door. "And Matthew," she looked back, "I believed you when you said you needed me." He opened his mouth to apologize, to stop her, to say something that could fix it. But she was already gone. That afternoon the office buzzed with whispers again, but this time Lisa didn't hear them. She was at home, sitting by her window, watching the light shift across the wall. For once she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen by herself, and that was enough. Matthew didn't sleep that night. He stayed in his office long after the building emptied out, long after the city outside quieted into distant horns and flickering red lights. He stood at the tall window, staring out, folder in hand, fingers pressed tight around the edges. Lisa's rewrite of the campaign was breathtaking, clean, honest, raw. Every slide, every caption, every image felt like Elise, but filtered through Lisa's quiet strength. She had taken grief and turned it into dignity. And she had done it after he'd left her exposed. He read it 3 times, then again, and again. The next morning, the board meeting started at 9 sharp. Matthew walked in 5 minutes early, folder tucked under his arm, expression unreadable. Daniel was already seated, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. "You sure you want to do this?" he said under his breath. "It's not too late to pull out." Matthew looked at him calmly. "You should sit up. You're about to witness something rare," Daniel smirked. "Which is?" "A man admitting he was wrong." The room fell silent as Matthew placed Lisa's campaign in front of each executive. He didn't start with a long introduction. He didn't use slides. He just spoke. This project was originally created by Elise Carter, my sister. Some of you remember her. Some never got the chance. A few quiet nods around the table. She started this campaign while fighting for her life. She believed it could matter. I was too scared to believe that with her, and after she died, I buried it. He paused. But someone brought it back to life. He held up Lisa's revised campaign. This isn't about sentimentality or romance or hierarchy. This is about excellence, integrity, vision. The board shifted, interested now. Matthew didn't blink. If you read this and still think it's unworthy of our brand, I'll resign. Today. No PR spin, no damage control. A few executives exchanged looks. Daniel sat up straighter. One of the women on the board, Grace, opened the folder. Who wrote this version? Matthew didn't hesitate. Lisa Morgan. Another pause. Then Grace smiled slightly. Let's read. An hour later, Matthew walked out of the boardroom alone. Daniel stayed behind. Didn't follow. Didn't smile this time. Lisa was standing in line at the pharmacy when her phone buzzed. She almost didn't check it, but then she saw the sender. Grace Renner. Senior board member. Untouchable. Your campaign was presented today. It moved the entire room. Just thought you should know. You've made your mark. Lisa's mouth parted slightly in disbelief, and then a second message came in. From Matthew. Thank you for not giving up on her or on what mattered. She stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the reply. She typed something, deleted it, typed again, then sent, "What now?" No reply came, at least not right away. That night, Lisa found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Her name, handwritten. No return address. She opened it carefully. Inside, a single sheet of thick paper. And a plane ticket to Vermont the next day. Her heart skipped. Folded inside the paper was a handwritten note. There's a place Elise loved. She used to sketch campaigns on the porch with tea and no Wi-Fi. I haven't been back there since she passed. I want to finish this there, with you. No boardrooms. No titles, just us and her story, but only if you want to. No name signed, but she didn't need one. She read the note twice, then looked at the ticket again. She packed that night in silence. Mocha meowed as Lisa zipped up her bag. I don't know what this is, she whispered, petting her softly. But I think I need to find out. She stared out the window before she slept, one hand resting over the folder that started it all. The next morning, Lisa stood at gate B14 with her boarding pass in hand. Matthew was already there. He looked different. Not like the CEO, not like the man with guards around his eyes. He looked tired and hopeful. He stood when he saw her. You came, he said quietly. Lisa nodded. You asked. He smiled, really smiled. I think this is where we stop pretending, he said. About what? About everything. They stood in silence for a moment, and then boarded the plane, together. The cabin in Vermont sat at the edge of a quiet hill, surrounded by tall trees and the soft hush of wind through the pines. Lisa stepped out of the car first, suitcase in hand, shoes crunching against the gravel. The air was cooler here, cleaner, like it hadn't been touched by the noise of city life. Matthew followed behind her, hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the cabin slowly. There was no trace of luxury here, just a wooden porch, a rusted tin mailbox, and wind chimes that swayed with every whisper of breeze. She used to sit right there, he said, pointing to the porch swing, even when it rained. Lisa looked at it. Worn wood, peeling paint, the kind of place someone creative would find comfort in. She could picture it. Elise curled up with a sketch pad, tea mug steaming beside her, laughing at something only she understood. Matthew unlocked the door and pushed it open. Dust, silence, the smell of pine and time. They stepped inside together. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic conversations, just two people carrying pieces of grief and possibility, and a house full of echoes. They spent the first few hours in quiet work. Lisa unpacked her materials in the small den Elise once used as a studio. There were still art supplies on the shelf. Blank canvases, pencils sharpened but never used. She touched nothing without care. Matthew made tea, real loose-leaf tea in a dented kettle. When he brought her a cup, she smiled gently and said, "Thank you," like it was more than just for the drink. At sunset, they sat on the porch swing together. Not too close, not too far. The wind chimes played something soft, and something in Lisa's chest loosened for the first time in days. "She used to sing to the trees," Matthew said suddenly, voice low. Lisa turned to him. "Elise said if you treated nature like it had a soul, it'd keep your secrets." He smiled. But his eyes didn't. "I thought it was silly, until after she was gone. Then I found myself whispering to the trees, too." Lisa looked out at the woods. "Do you think she still hears them?" Matthew didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I think she'd like knowing someone finished her story." Lisa turned her cup in her hands. "You could have finished it without me," she said. "No," he replied, "I couldn't." There was something final in the way he said it. That night after dinner, they sat by the old stone fireplace. Lisa had her laptop out, adjusting design layouts with Elise's sketches overlaid. Matthew sat on the floor beside the fire, sorting through a box of Elise's old notebooks he hadn't touched in years. "I didn't know you kept all this," Lisa said. "I didn't either," he replied. "Not until now." He handed her a sketch. It was a rough drawing. A woman standing in a spotlight with the words scribbled beneath, "Don't be afraid of being seen." Lisa ran her fingers over the pencil lines. "She was talking to herself," Matthew murmured. Lisa looked at him. "Or maybe," she said softly, "she was talking to you." He looked up. They locked eyes. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. Later that night, Lisa sat on the bed in the guest room, staring out the window at the dark sky. She didn't feel lost. She didn't feel confused. She felt suspended, like she was between something old and something new, between heartbreak and hope. She touched her phone, no signal. But she didn't miss it. In the quiet, her mind returned to Matthew, to his voice when he said, "I couldn't finish it without you." Not wouldn't. Couldn't. In the living room, Matthew stared at the fire. He hadn't planned this. Not the cabin, not the letter, not the feeling he got when Lisa walked into a room, like the air shifted, like he could breathe deeper, like he was finally allowed to care again. He didn't know what came next. He just knew. He didn't want to go back to a world without her in it. The next morning, Lisa found him outside, splitting firewood in a gray hoodie, hair a little messy, the sleeves of his shirt rolled up past his elbows. She stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching him for a long moment before speaking. "You're not terrible at that." He looked up and smirked. "I was going for rustic charm." "You're half there." They smiled at each other. Not the polite kind, the real kind. Later that day, while reviewing the final campaign draft, Lisa noticed something tucked into one of Elise's old folders, a sealed envelope, unopened. On the front, in soft handwriting, it said, "For the person who brings this to life." Lisa's hands trembled. "Matthew," she called. He came to her side. Together, they opened it. Inside was a short letter, written in Lisa's unmistakable voice. "If you're reading this, it means you saw more than slides and slogans. You saw the heart. I don't know who you are, but thank you. You gave my story an ending, or maybe a new beginning." There was no name at the bottom. Just a hand-drawn heart. Lisa blinked back tears. Matthew reached over and took her hand. Slowly, gently, as if asking permission, she didn't pull away. In that small Vermont cabin where Elise once filled the walls with sketches and songs, two people sat side by side, not healed, not certain, but finally open. to memory, to forgiveness, to whatever might come next. The elevator ride up to the office felt different this time. Lisa stood beside Matthew in silence, not out of awkwardness, but understanding. They had shared something real in Vermont, not just memories, not just stories, but a space where neither had to perform, prove, or pretend. But now the elevator hummed with the weight of return, back to reality, back to the city, back to the eyes. As the doors slid open on the 21st floor, Lisa felt it instantly, the tension, the energy shift, like walking into a room where someone had just been talking about you. Phones lowered, conversation stalled, eyes followed. She kept walking. Matthew walked beside her. He didn't flinch. At her desk, a stack of messages waited. Emails, reminders, a folder marked urgent with Daniel's signature across it, in red ink. She didn't touch it. Instead, she opened her laptop and uploaded the final version of the Whitmore campaign to the internal system. Then she hit send, to the board, to marketing, to everyone who mattered. Within minutes, responses poured in. Subject lines like, powerful. This is the best we've had in years. Tell me who wrote this. I want her on my next project. Lisa stared at the screen. For a moment, she let herself feel it, that this wasn't a gift from someone else, or luck, or being noticed. This was her work, her vision, her voice, and people were finally listening, but not everyone was applauding. Daniel stormed into Matthew's office 30 minutes later. "You went behind protocol," he snapped. "You submitted a major campaign without senior review." Matthew stood calmly at his desk. "It was approved by the board. You were there. That was for consideration. You gave her full release control." "She earned it," Daniel laughed bitterly. "You're not protecting her. You're destroying your credibility for her." Matthew stepped forward. "No. I destroyed my credibility when I let people like you silence the ones doing real work. I won't do it again." Daniel's voice dropped. "This isn't just about her, is it?" "No," Matthew said. "It's about everything we've let this place become." Daniel shook his head. "You always were too soft. Elise had you wrapped around her finger, too." Matthew didn't blink. Elise was the best thing that ever happened to this company. And so is Lisa. Daniel stared at him. Then, coldly, "We'll see what the board thinks when this story hits the press." Later that day, Lisa was called to the main conference room. She walked in prepared, shoulders square, folder in hand, heart steady. Inside, 2 board members, a representative from PR, and Daniel. No Matthew. "Lisa," one of the board members said, "there are questions being raised about the visibility of your relationship with Mr. Carter and how it may have influenced the campaign's handling." Lisa met their eyes. "I expected this," she said calmly. "Did you and Mr. Carter have a personal relationship during the production of this campaign?" "Yes," she said, "but not the way you think." Daniel leaned forward. "Careful." Lisa ignored him. "I collapsed in this office from overwork," she continued. "He didn't know my name before that, but after we saw each other, not in a romantic sense, in a human one." "And now?" one of the women asked gently. Lisa took a breath. "Now we're connected, because we both lost someone who saw us better than we saw ourselves." Silence. Then the PR rep asked, "And do you believe your work stands on its own?" Lisa opened the folder. "I don't need to believe it. You've seen the results. The board already approved the campaign. Feedback has been stronger than anything we've launched this quarter." Daniel scoffed. "Emotional blackmail, that's all this is." Just then, the door opened. Matthew walked in. He didn't ask permission, didn't apologize for being late. He walked straight to Lisa's side. "Lisa speaks for both of us," he said. Then he turned to Daniel. "And you're right about one thing. This is emotional. Because for the first time, we're not making decisions based on fear or reputation. We're making them based on people." Daniel looked ready to argue again, but the board member held up a hand. "I think we've heard enough," she said. Then she looked at Lisa. "Congratulations. The campaign is being greenlit for full launch. You'll co-lead the team." Lisa's eyes widened. "Co-lead." "With me," Matthew added. "If you'll accept," the board member said. Lisa turned slowly to Matthew. He nodded. This time she didn't hesitate. "I accept." When they stepped out of the room, Matthew stopped her in the hallway. "I'm sorry it had to be like this." Lisa looked up at him. "I'm not." He raised an eyebrow. "I thought being invisible was safe," she said. "But turns out it was just lonely." He took a step closer. "Lisa, I'm not afraid of being seen anymore," she whispered. He reached out, brushing her fingers with his. Then let them look. The launch day came quietly. No red carpet, no corporate fanfare, just a soft email push, a quiet post, and a video, exactly how Elise had imagined it. Lisa stood in the corner of the creative floor, watching the screen as the first ad played on loop. Women walking through city streets, boardrooms, hospitals, construction sites, heads held high. Real women, no filters, no scripts. Your worth was never meant to be whispered. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. It was Elise's voice in the narration, pulled from a demo she'd recorded years ago. Someone cried in the back of the room, quietly. Lisa didn't know who it was, but for the first time in her career, she didn't feel alone. Matthew watched from the balcony above, not as a CEO, just as someone proud, of the woman who had taken his sister's ashes and built something whole. He wasn't used to letting go of control. But with Lisa, he'd learned that real strength had nothing to do with keeping people at a distance, and everything to do with letting the right ones close. Later that day, Lisa slipped away from the noise and walked up to the rooftop alone. The air was cool, the sky clear. The same swing still hung where it always did, quiet, swaying slightly in the breeze. She sat down, watching the buildings stretch into the distance, how far she'd come, how far Elise had brought them all. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small framed sketch, one of Elise's originals, and set it gently on the ledge. It showed a single word in bold. Hand-drawn lettering, "Seen." "Thought I'd find you here," Matthew's voice. She didn't turn right away, just smiled, still facing the horizon. "I used to hate rooftop," she said. "They felt too open. Like if I wasn't careful, the world might actually notice me." He sat beside her. "And now?" "Now I think maybe that's what I needed." They sat in silence for a moment. Wind moved through her hair. His shoulder brushed against hers, not by accident. He looked at her, truly looked at her. "You changed me, Lisa." She turned to him. "No," she said softly. "You just let yourself be seen." They didn't need grand gestures, no sudden kiss, no dramatic declarations. Just hands finding each other quietly between them, fingers interlaced. Steady and sure. It was enough. More than enough. Weeks later, the Whitmore campaign won a national award, but Lisa didn't attend the gala. Instead, she visited Elise's gravesite, alone, and left behind a printed photo from the launch day, tucked into a plastic sleeve to keep it from the rain. "Your voice found its way through," she whispered. "Thank you for choosing me." Back in the city, the office was no longer the place she tried to disappear in. People knew her name now, but not because of whispers or assumptions, because of what she'd built, what she'd stood for, what she'd finished. One afternoon, as she packed up her things for the day, Matthew leaned on her desk with a small smile. "Dinner?" She looked up. "Work dinner or actual dinner?" He tilted his head. "What do you think?" She smirked. "You paying?" He handed her her coat. Always. As they walked out together, someone from HR passed by, the same woman who once warned Lisa to be careful. This time, she simply smiled at them and said, "Great work this quarter. Funny how much things can change when you stop hiding." Downstairs, the city buzzed with life. Lisa stepped into the evening air, hand still wrapped in Matthew's, And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was beginning. The end. Now, tell me, have you ever felt invisible until one person really saw you? Not just for what you do, but for who you are. What did it change? Share in the comments. We'd love to hear your story.